Hey guys, this is JC Carroll. I'm here with Boyd Brooks. We are starting a podcast. This is episode one, and we are turning rows into profit. Just wanted to have a quick introduction. Uh, Boyd and I have known each other for quite some time. I am with AgriLiance Insurance Group, and Boyd is with Alethea Risk Management, and we're going to be primarily focusing on southeastern agriculture.
Hey, JC, glad to be on the pilot episode here. Hopefully, it's not the last one that we have, but yeah, JC and I have known each other for a few years, and we kind of started talking. And there's a lot of podcast information out there, but maybe there's a a niche in the market, as they say, for maybe a little more focus on the southeast guys where our markets are. So we're kind of gonna just go through it and see what happens, and talk some markets, talk some insurance, talk some government programs, and but we're going to kind of bring it down into the southern charm a little bit, and hopefully that'll be something that is useful to some of our customers down south, and maybe reach a few more folks that we're not talking to just yet. So we just wanted to kind of introduce ourselves real quick, but this is a big week going into the March 31st prospective plantings and stocks report. Typically this report will move prices 3 to 4% within the next 5 days, one way or another, based on the last 20, 25 years. So we've got a lot of information coming at us on Wednesday.
Boyd, what do you anticipate we're going to hear Wednesday?
The average trade guess for corn is 93.2, 93.5 on corn acres. I think that number is probably in line with what people think based on the USDA Ag Outlook Forum from February. They've got bean acres estimated around 90 and cotton acres around 11 and a half, which would be down about 5 million from last year. So my only question in all of that is that enough acres? We've seen in 2019, you go back to that wet planted year, and we had about 18 million of prevent plant across the nation. Last year, we had about 11 million acres of prevent plant, and a lot of that came out of the Dakotas. They had a really wet spring, a wet fall and a delayed harvest into the spring. So, could we get total corn and beans up in that 184 type area? I think that would be my only question on the average trade guess numbers is everybody kind of thinking that the acres are going to be about where they were the last basically 2016, 17, 18. But as we know, the higher prices typically will encourage some more plantings. So I think we'll switch some acres down south from cotton. I think you'll switch some acres out in the plains, southern plains to milo at the expense of some cotton, probably at the expense of some corn. I think you'll see, and I don't know if you'll see it in this report, but I think you could probably see it in the June acreage report, that double crop bean acres will be higher than we've seen the last few years. Obviously the soft red winter wheats planted, those are probably not going to be torn up based on some conditions that I've heard from guys everywhere. It looks pretty good, so I don't see any reason to destroy that and go back and plant corn. But I think you could see if a soybean's $12, well, let's just go throw it in there and see what happens after we get this weed off. So I think your total acres will probably increase from the March report to the June report, but as we all know, the USDA tilt-a-whirl always surprises. So it'll be interesting to see what they give us on Wednesday.
So Boyd, if I'm a farmer right now and I'm considering, what crops to plant across my acres, especially down south where I have the option of corn, cotton, and beans. As you see these conditions kind of unfold, not so much in planting conditions, which we'll talk about, but more so in the market. What's your mix look like? Is it going to be something that you've just kind of consistently been, or are you leaning heavier on one crop or the other?
My customers, I don't think we've seen a lot of switching. Maybe some more corn acres at the expense of cotton, but everybody's kind of at a point now where your equipment is what your equipment is, and to really make a wholesale change one way or another would be pretty difficult. So yeah, we're going to lose a few cotton acres. I think we'll probably gain some corn acres. We'll probably see some more double crop beans. The biggest thing I would say is let's look at the market structure. Historically, or the last 2 or 3 years, September corn has been at a discount to December corn. And you look at it this year, you've got an 18-cent premium today, September over December. So the market's telling you, I want that corn early, right at harvest, our sweet spot down here in the Southeast. Basis is reflecting the same thing. So that's what I would be looking at in the corn market is, let's say, all right, if we can get this corn planted, and a lot of it has been planted already, and we should, be ahead of pace in Mississippi. Alabama's probably just a bit behind. I think Georgia was a few points behind, but we got some pretty weather in South Carolina and North Carolina this week. Look at that structure on your local cash prices and see, all right, do I have a chance to ship some corn at harvest, maybe at even better levels than I have to put it in the bin and wait for JFN.
I was really, in listening to you, you said you feel like our cotton acres are going to be down. With that in mind, what do you feel like the upside potential is in the cotton price? You feel like it's kind of going to stay in this trading range, or do you feel like we could see any sort of rally there?
I mean, if we go back and look at the cotton chart, we've been on a heater since about February. I mean, it's pretty much been straight up. That market, as well as a lot of other commodity markets, have been influenced by inflationary trade pressures, printing of money, weaker dollar over the summer. Yeah, it was overdue for a correction. But here we are at, 78-cent new crop cotton today. We got up as high as, 89, close to it. Lower acres will help the bullish narrative for these money managers to kind of get back into that side of the trade, assuming that we don't see any macroeconomic blowups. I don't see any reason why cotton won't go back and challenge that old high from middle of February.
Right. That's one of the things with all of these markets is kind of our relationship with China and the ebb and flow of how that goes really from one administration to the next. When you look at that, a couple of weeks ago we had the big blow up where everybody had to pull the cameras out of the rooms when the United States and China got together. Kind of short term and long term, just snapshots, I guess, as you see this thing with China progressing. What do you feel like that's going to look like? Kind of best case and worst case scenario.
I think the short term, it's kind of a two-sided coin to me. We went through the trade war with China. They were coming out of ASF, where their hog herd was decimated. I believe that the Chinese kind of went through that scenario, not necessarily playing Trump, but showing that, hey, we have these stocks and we're willing to work down those stocks to prove a point to you that we don't need you today. But now we're into the first part of the Biden administration where they say, well, we kind of used it all up. Prices were low 6 months ago. We're going to try to restock at some better levels. I don't know that the Biden administration is going to be as tough on China as the Trump administration was. And that's the part that scares me a little bit, because I think the Chinese will use that as kind of a negotiating tool and say, okay, Biden, we know that you're not going to put these tariffs or raise these tariffs that are still in place from the Trump administration. We know you're not going to raise those tariffs on us. So can we kind of put some pressure on you to fulfill phase 2 of the trade agreement. So in the short run, China needs this stuff. They're willing to restock at lower prices. Do we get out to the harvest of the Brazilian safrinha crop in May, June, and they start to cancel some corn shipments as a way to put some pressure? Potentially. Longer term, man, that's up to China. They're trying to diversify, right? They're trying to buy stuff out of Russia and South America and Ukraine and Africa. They're investing a lot of money in Africa. So I think China is still, at the end of the day, just a sharp trader as a country. They're going to buy it when it suits them, and they're going to use their volume purchasing power to say, I don't have to buy it from you today. I might be able to wait and put some pressure on you. So long term, flip a coin, but short term, I think it's going to be positive as they try to, fulfill that phase 1. Even though going back, I never thought it would happen, but they've been true to their word so far.
Yeah, you really got the feeling as we went through the, I guess this past year, and when the, I guess, election was all that we were talking about, is China going to wait as long as they can to make sure that, they know for sure either Trump's in or out before they make any significant moves? And, one of the things in the Southeast that we were just considering, with cotton being just so heavily influenced by that Chinese market, that was one of the things that I felt like we were all waiting for, is, kind of hoping that the tough trade negotiation piece of the puzzle that Trump had in place would stick around, but knowing that the new administration wasn't going to be as, I guess, just strict and enforceful on those trade tariffs as Trump would have been. Now here we are, and there's a big question mark on what's coming next. Hopefully we do kind of continue to be, I guess, forceful, but willing to work with China in the same breath.
Yeah, and I think that's the part about China is we need them from an economic standpoint, and basically the rest of the world does, as they're 1/7 of the population. The bad part is the more power that you give them through economics, the more powerful they get on the backside, because that is their goal, is to be the #1 world power by 2049.
Right.
So they're working towards that, and so I'm glad I'm not in Washington trying to figure out that problem, because it is one that's on everybody's mind. Speaking of cotton, I mean, yeah, they continue to buy U.S. cotton. The last 3 or 4 weeks, export sales have been fantastic. Even though we're in a declining market cotton-wise, I think that's more of a technical trade in the short run. Stronger dollar, weaker cotton. Cotton's one of those markets that's probably not quite as liquid as corn and soybeans. So once those technicals get rolling to the downside, they can correct. But it seems like we've kind of stopped the bleeding here. We had a good reversal last Friday. Went down and challenged that 100-day moving average and bounced back above it pretty good. So I think cotton will rebound.
But when we think about, Southeastern ag, we think a little bit differently than the rest of the country as far as basis goes. One of the things that I've been curious about is moving into this year with higher prices. What do you see kind of coming down the pipe as a strengthening or weakening basis? How do you think that's going to progress as we go through the year?
I think the difference this year has been the export program in corn.
Mhm.
I assume you're referring mostly to corn here,
Yeah, mostly
but
corn.
you know, the last few years we've had a big push of corn coming out of the Midwest, Kentucky, Tennessee, coming into the Southeast because that river really wasn't kind of drawing those bushels for export. This year, the river's kind of drawing those bushels to export, and so the supplies are somewhat more limited than they have been. The flip side of that is I think you've seen a little bit of a slowdown in feed demand. It's nothing major just yet, but traded some cash corn and it's don't send me trucks for a week because I'm backed up. My bins are full. This is coming from poultry end users. So you know prices go up. Guys bought stuff on the way up, trying to kind of hedge against it. They probably bought a little too much in January just to get out of the way of a surprise USDA report. Um, and now we're kind of back to working through those supplies. Going forward, I think you will see bases continue to be really firm as long as we see the Chinese continuing to execute these export purchases. If you get a cancellation or two and they say, well, we're only going to take 15 million metric tons, well, all of a sudden that's another 120 million bushels back on the market in the U.S. for domestic consumption. So the thing to be wary of if you're carrying old crop corn in the Southeast is the inverse. I mean, you got a 14-cent discount from May to July. So if you're looking at that, make sure that your basis for June, July overcomes that 14-cent discount in the futures. So if you're 70 over the May, you need to be 84 over the July to be the same money. Now you're carrying that corn longer, so it probably needs to be 90 or 95. But just be wary of the inverse because that's something we haven't seen since probably 2014 in the corn market. But new crop basis will be good, especially on the front end as the market tries to get those early supplies in the pipeline. So you should have some decent opportunities for old crop and new crop as we go over the next 4 to 5 months.
Good deal. I feel like we've touched on most everything except soybeans really, as we move forward and think about the soybean market, kind of what are you anticipating there?
The soybean balance sheet is very tight. So we need two things. In the short run, we need to slow down the crush margins or the crush usage. Soybean oil has been a large driver in keeping those margins positive. The other thing we're going to need is to import some beans between now and call it September new crop. Those numbers are close to working for importing some beans out of South America. So keep an eye on that. But the bean balance sheet's so tight, we're going to need more acres than the USDA is going to show us on Wednesday, in my opinion. So the market's job over the next 60 days, if we get a 93 corn and a 90 million bean print, we're going to need 91 and a half or 92 bean acres to kind of solve that balance sheet. Some of those will come from double crop. I think the acres will be bigger in June, but beans should be pretty firm as we go out the next 60 to 90 days, I think.
Definitely some upside potential from here then, and buying those acres between now and when the majority of folks are planting across the country.
Yes, it's going to be that ratio, right? We got to watch the corn versus the beans.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the corn falls off a little bit, the beans are going to have to overcome and try to incentivize guys to plant a few more soybeans. So yeah, I think we have some upside in the bean market, new crop.
And any thoughts on wheat? I know, I see kind of a pretty good looking wheat crop as I'm driving through the Southeast and in most spots. We've got a bunch of rain. There's, some spotty places that just were too wet, but for the most part, I think we're going to be looking at a decent crop.
Yeah, we should have a decent wheat crop based on everything I've heard. The wheat market got really excited on the Russia export ban, 6 weeks ago. Ever since they did that, we've kind of been backing off. Russia and Ukraine conditions have improved significantly since that February timeframe when they're worried about cold weather kind of hitting that. We've got some rains in the hard red winter belt here in the U.S. over the last 2 weeks. That's kind of alleviated some of those concerns as well. But wheat to me is either a follower of corn and beans or an inflationary play. So that's what I would be watching. If I don't have any wheat priced at 6.11 on the new crop, probably not a bad time to get some of that done because, again, we're the most expensive wheat in the world. And if Russia, Australia, Ukraine has exportable supplies, we're going to be left here with excess carryout. So not saying it's going to 450, but 620 wheat's not a bad place to lay off some risk either before a large report.
Sure, right. Anything else that you're watching on your end?
No, we've kind of been sideways in all these markets since about January, outside of the wheat, the corn and beans, and just really go back and look at the chart. January the 15th, we haven't gone anywhere. So Wednesday will be our next driver, and that'll set the stage for probably the next 30 to 45 days until we get more about the South American safrinha crop. But it's going to be exciting one way or another.
Good deal. Well, let's get back in front of these guys after we have that report and kind of get your thoughts on that. Just on the policy front, the CFAP, what a lot of people are calling 3.0, they changed the name to PAP. It's called the Pandemic Assistance for Producers Program. That's going to pay $20 per planted acre. BILSAC just announced a couple of days ago now that was going to move forward. I think they were reevaluating it and basically found out that there wasn't a whole lot that they could do, that was pretty much written into the funding that was allocated for the coronavirus relief. So, another little pop here, short term for guys on each planted acre. The prevented acres were not included in that, and that's one of the things a lot of I know the Farm Bureau was pushing for prevented acres to be included in that $20 per acre number. So
did I see it right where if you've already applied for the last CFAP, you do not have to reapply?
That's correct. Don't have to reapply, but the only thing that really is noteworthy in all of this is that there's been additional funds allocated for cattle and dairy programs, or I guess operations in the Southeast or all over. But the other little piece is they're also, my understanding is, now going to allocate additional funds for organic certification, which, I think is going to be kind of a trend moving forward through this new administration's big picture on ag, trying to get more organic acres, trying to reward producers for dotting their I's, crossing their T's on everything that they need to be doing to either be organic or just more environmentally friendly. Yes, I think you're going to hear that over and over and over again. Not that I'm against that, but man, I tell you what, I think they're going to drive this home until it's not a preference of the administration, but it's more a piece of the policy puzzle that we're all going to have to be paying attention to moving forward. The only other thing I have specific to the Southeast is we got a little cold snap in as these corn acres coming in some of our states are going to see below freezing temperatures dip down in to that corn. I don't think that in a lot of cases corn where it is getting cold isn't far enough along to really get hurt with that. But just remember, how your replant works on the crop insurance piece of the puzzle. That's 8 bushels um, to your times your plant price. And in every state in the Southeast, it's going to be around between $35 to $39 an acre to replant those crops. And don't do a thing until you call your crop insurance provider and let them know that you are replanting, so they can dot their I's and cross their T's and make sure you got, the proper paperwork in place to get paid. But that's on our end with the crop insurance piece, man. There's not a whole lot to tell other than just make sure that you're doing everything right to make sure you don't miss out on an easy little payment for a replant here or there.
Sales season is about over for a while.
Sales season is over for a little bit, so everything should be in place to go make a crop, boys.
That's right.
But guys, if you have any comments or questions that you'd like for us to answer or topics to cover, my email is jc@agrilliance. That's agrilliance.com. And you go ahead and give yours, Boyd.
It's Boyd, Boyd, at alethearisk.com, or on Twitter, I'm UK Corn Trader. I'm probably easier to find on there. So
there we go. But appreciate everybody's time and listening, and let us know if you have anything we need to cover.
Hopefully this won't be the only episode.
Hopefully they'll be around too. If we manage to hit record on this.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Boyd.